Peace and blessings. Welcome back to the channel once again, where we talk all things health and healing from a holistic perspective. And today will be no different. Today, we're going to talk about the cause of skin tags, these outer growths, noticeable darkened outer growths that seem to appear on our neck, our eyelids, our faces, our underarms, our armpits, and they seem to grow and they seem to not go away. Now, the good news about these growths is that they're benign. They're not cancerous. So that's the great news about them. The bad news is that they're not going anywhere. Okay. And they're not going anywhere because unless you create change. Okay. And that's how everything works in life. Things don't change until you change. And so I'm going to talk about how do we create change to get rid of these outer growths. Now, this may not be something that is important for you because you may not have any skin tags, but somebody in your family may have them, or you could actually be preventing yourself from getting these outgrowths, especially if you notice that they tend to run in the family. Because what they've noticed is that there is a genetic component to it, but it's a very small genetic component. And what I mean by that is genes are just light switches. They can be turned on and off. And so when you see something running in the family like this, it's not that the genes created the skin tags. You did something to turn that light switch on to create the skin tag. And we'll talk about that in a second. Now, the good news is that these skin tags are benign. This means that they're not cancerous. Okay, so that's the good news. The bad news is that they're not going anywhere. They're going to not only multiply, but they're going to get bigger as well too. And the reason why that's so important is because if you go into your doctor, in most cases, they're going to tell you they don't know why they happen. Okay, they don't know why they happen, so they don't understand the cause. And if you can't understand the cause, it means that you can't actually address it to get rid of them. So they're going to continue to multiply and grow. Now, here's the thing. They will actually offer you, the opportunity to remove them, either through cryotherapy or through cauterization. Okay. Now that's expensive because, as I said before, you don't get just one or two, they multiply. Most people have many of them. Okay. And to remove them can cost you anything from $45 to $150. And when some people have upwards of 100 of them, you can see how expensive that can get. Okay. And again, the big thing is that, you can surgically remove them, which is removing the symptom, but you have not addressed the cause, which means that they can come back, and they often do come back. Okay. And this is, an unfortunate consequence of not addressing the symptom. Okay. And so that's what we're all about. We're actually about addressing the cause on this channel. And I'm going to help you navigate that in just a second. But it's very important you know and understand, just because you have them removed, it does not mean that they're not coming back. Okay. Because the condition within the body is actually creating them. And what's important to know and understand about that, our skin, which I've always told you guys, is the largest organ in the body. Okay. The skin is actually an organ. And also it's the largest elimination organ in the body that eliminates, toxicity, waste, things that should not be in the body. Okay. So when you see these outer skin growths on the eyelids, on the face, on the neck, under the armpit, in the groin, etc., when you see them, it's important to sort of take the perspective of, this is my body's attempt to heal me, to get rid of something that shouldn't be in the body. That's how your perspective should be looking at it. Okay. So now you have to reverse engineer and say, well, what is it trying to heal? And that's what we're going to get into. Okay. So again, the skin is the largest organ in the body. It's the largest elimination organ. So when it starts eliminating, and it's eliminating these growth or creating these growth, it's important to know and understand that the skin is an outer reflection of the inner environment. Okay, so it doesn't matter if it's an outer growth like these skin tags or warts, or it's an inner growth like a cyst or a tumor. It doesn't matter. That's the body's attempt to heal, to localize something that is waste, that is toxicity, that shouldn't be in the body. Okay, so we're going to address what is that waste that the body is trying to get rid of in just a second. And it's important to also know it and understand that Again, if you do not address the cause, they will come back. And again, it could be very expensive to have these individually surgically removed through cryotherapy or cauterization, $45 to $150 each time. Okay, so let's jump into what is the actual cause? Because if you can address the cause, you can actually start to even shrink these and they will start to actually disappear as well too. Okay, so one of the direct causes is a condition known as hyperinsulinemia. Okay, that's elevated insulin in the body, which will eventually lead to insulin resistance, which means that insulin levels will be very high, but the insulin won't actually work, okay, to get the sugar that you're putting in your body inside of the cell, because that's the whole idea and goal of the process for insulin is to take sugar, okay, and put it inside of the cell in the form of glucose to be used to make energy. Okay, that's the whole process. Glucose or sugar is our primary fuel in our bodies. Okay, but when we abuse it, we abuse that fuel and we use the wrong kind of fuel. Okay, it's like getting the wrong gas at the pump. Then at some point, you're going to ruin the car. In this case, you're going to ruin your body. And I'm going to talk about those wrong types of fuels that we continually use and eat on a daily basis that contribute to this. Now, this condition, hyperinsulinemia or elevated insulin levels, it creates a condition known as metabolic syndrome. Okay, and the reason why is because insulin is a hormone, and hormones tell the body what to do. It sort of gives the body a command. Okay, and one of the commands that insulin gives the body is to store fat. So the first thing that happens when your insulin levels are constantly elevated is that you're going to gain weight. And eventually this could lead to either you being overweight or becoming obese, and that weight will be very difficult to eliminate if you're in this constant state of hyperinsulinemia. When your body is in this state, you have to remember the hormone insulin is telling your body store fat, store fat, store fat, and you're at the gym trying to work it off, work it off, work it off. But you cannot outwork your biochemistry. Okay, so again, like this is why this conversation is so important. So that's the first thing. This is also going to create type 2 diabetes. Okay, now if your insulin levels are elevated long enough and it's overworking your pancreas, which produces the insulin long enough, your pancreas at some point is going to quit its job and stop working. Okay, and when it stops working, now you will go from type 2 diabetic to type 1. Okay, you'll convert from type 2 to type 1, and now you're in really big trouble. Now you have to actually take insulin as well too through injection. Okay, so huge problem that creates this metabolic syndrome. And when I say metabolic, just think of it as metabolism. Okay, we all know we want our metabolisms to be high so we can be lean. But when you're creating this condition, insulin resistance, elevated insulin, you will not have a high metabolism. You will have a very low metabolism. Okay, it's going to lead to gaining weight, type 2 diabetes. It's also going to lead to high blood pressure and other conditions as well too, which could lead to heart disease. Okay, so it really complicates the entire body, this one condition. Okay, now getting back to the original topic, so what you'll notice is type 2 diabetics and type 1 diabetics often have these skin tags. Okay, now just because you're not type 1 or type 2 diabetic does not mean that you don't have elevated insulin levels in your body. Okay, so huge component. So what's causing these elevated insulin levels? A high carbohydrate diet, and specifically a high refined carbohydrate diet. Especially in Western societies, our diets are littered with these refined carbohydrates, okay? And most people don't understand how much they're eating, okay? Until they finally do a food diary and start to take, responsibility and start to actually see the numbers and see what they're eating, they realize how much of these refined carbohydrates that they're eating. Now, here's the thing. There is no healthy level of refined carbohydrates that our bodies need. Okay, our bodies do not need refined carbohydrates at all. As a matter of fact, refined carbohydrates essentially are pastas. All of these white pastas that you see, pastries, cookies, cakes, muffins, things of that nature, white bread, white flour, any type of white flour, okay? Sugary drinks. So it's not just sodas, but it's also these quote unquote juices, okay? So sugary drinks of any kind, pizzas, bagels, the macaroni and cheese that you're eating, the spaghetti noodles that you're eating. I can go on and on. But when you start to look at how much white rice, refined grains of any kind, when you start to look at how much we're consuming on an annual basis, which is somewhere in the neighborhood, when we look at just white flour alone, we're consuming somewhere in the neighborhood of 135 pounds of white flour every year. Okay, that's astronomical if you don't understand that number. But that's a huge number in terms of like how many refined carbohydrates we're consuming, especially when you're considering we don't need any, we need zero. Okay, so a high refined carbohydrate diet. And the reason why I'm saying refined carbohydrate is because when these carbohydrates go through a refining process, they pull all of the nutrients out of them. That's how you get white flour. That's how you get, white rice. Okay, that's how you get white pasta, because they're pulling all of the fiber and the nutrients out of it. Now it's essentially poor. It's nutrient poor. It has nothing in it. Okay, and then they have to add back synthetic vitamins and minerals in them, and that's why they say it's enriched now, because it was poor. But it's important for you to know and understand the refined carbohydrates are elevating your insulin levels, causing your blood sugar to be high. Okay, that's the primary cause of these skin tags. Okay, now here's the thing. The good news is that you can go on a low or no refined carbohydrate diet. Eliminate them all. All the things that I mentioned before, the pastries, the cookie, cakes, and pies, the white bread, the white flour, any type of added sugar, white rice, refined grains, pastas, sugary drinks, pizzas, bagels, eliminate them. This does not mean that you do not eat complex carbohydrates, which are healthy carbohydrates in the form of green leafy vegetables and things of that nature. Even fruits are fine, okay? If you get rid of all of these refined carbohydrates. So you have to totally eliminate them, okay? The refined carbohydrates that I mentioned before. That's the first and most important thing. And what I've seen is people in a matter of 2 to 3 months start to see not only do these skin tags start to shrink, but many of them start to disappear. Okay. So that's the most important thing. All right. It does take time, but you can actually, I've seen it done. Okay. People go on a keto diet, which simply means low carbohydrate in combination with intermittent fasting. Okay. So you remove all the refined carbohydrates and then you do some intermittent fasting. That just simply means intermittent fasting. There's a window of time, and specifically a window of time with a minimum of 12 hours where you're not eating. Now consider most people are sleeping 8 hours a day. So you're sleeping 8 of those, unless you're sleepwalking and going to the refrigerator and eating out of the refrigerator. 8 of those you're sleeping. And then 2 of those hours could be before you go to bed, which should really be 3 to 4. And then another 2 or 3 to 4 hours could be after you wake up. You don't consume anything that will elevate the blood sugar levels in the body. And that is intermittent fasting. Okay, so incorporating intermittent fasting, eliminating these refined carbohydrates, and in a matter of 3 to 6 months, you're not only going to see them shrink, you're going to see many of them disappear. Now, what I can do is I'll give you sort of a remedy that you could actually use to eliminate them, individually as well too, instead of having to go to your doctor and have them surgically removed. Okay. And this is not you doing anything to cut them or do anything. I do not recommend you do any of that. Do not remove these yourself. But what you can do is get some iodine, specifically the povidone iodine. Okay. You'll add 2 to 3 drops to the skin tag. Okay. You also can use garlic juice. So you have some garlic and you crush it up and take some of that juice and add a few drops of the garlic juice as well to the infected area, or on a gauze or on a Band-Aid. And then you put a Band-Aid over the area. Okay. And what you'll notice is that they will literally start to drop off that way as well too. Okay. You apply directly to the skin tag. Okay. And what you'll do is you'll do 2 to 3 fresh applications a day until the skin tag or the wart goes away. Okay. Now, I don't eat a lot of garlic at all, but I do use it for these topical applications. And for that, I think it works perfectly. Okay. So some garlic juice, a few drops of that. And then you use the povidone iodine, 2 to 3 drops of that, because it's actually antimicrobial, and these skin tags will start to drop off that way. But the main way you have to do it, because that way it does not address the cause that I just gave you, but actually removing these refined carbohydrates and starting an intermittent fasting regimen, that is what is actually the true sort of solution to the problem. Okay. So if you've done this or you do this in the future, come back, tell us your results in the comments. And if you have these and you've been struggling with them, you've had them surgically removed and then they came back, comment below too, because I know that's your struggle as well. And if you're enjoying the information, make sure you hit that subscribe button, share this with people so that we can keep this sort of revolution around how we approach things from not only a holistic perspective, but a healing perspective as well too. Until the next time, peace and blessings and Godspeed.